my first investment was my primary, right? And then outside of that primary, my first flip was in 2022. Shortly after, I was doing a lot more retail stuff, and I kind of had that analysis paralysis. And then one day, out of the blue, this lady calls me and said, "Hey, I have a house for sale. Do you know anybody that does cash offers?" And I was like, yeah, I think I do. Yeah. Actually I do. And, I'll come by your house, and I'll give a look. I'll look at it, and then I'll get back to you, and we can talk about numbers. And so right after I hung up, I was like, oh shit, what do I do now? And I think this is the reality of people that take action, right? One of the co-hosts on my podcast, he has probably 99 rentals, and I think he's the guy you should probably talk to next. But I ask him all the time, I'm like, dude, like why do you have 99? And he's like, I don't know, I just like started buying, and then I was like, all right, what's next? And then he would buy the next one, and then he would buy the next one. And I think that's the thing that I really want to like stick on, is like once I got off the phone, the action had to happen, because I just told this lady I was going to do something. Versus if you're just sitting there looking at Zillow or Investor Lift or all these other platforms, and you're just looking at deals and trying to comp them and see if they're a deal, you can sit there and analyze, but there's no real action being done. So after I hung up on that call, I started running numbers. I went over there, scheduled an appointment, went over there and looked at it with a contractor. You know, I'm on Facebook group pages, like trying to find any contractor and every contractor, because I had none at the time. Again, I'd only been in Maryland for 2 years at that point. So I hadn't really built a lot of relationships. I was just kind of selling real estate part-time, still full-time in the military. And I ended up finding a contractor. They went out to the appointment. They told me, hey, it's going to cost like probably 125,000. Now I'm scared shitless. I'm like, 125, and are you guaranteeing me that this is not going to go up? And they're like, yeah, I think 125 covers you. And at that point, I know they're making some money, right? Because like, if you're going to guarantee me that it won't go up, and you're doing roof, siding, everything, then you're definitely making some money. And looking back at it now, they definitely made a lot of money off of me, and that was okay. I told them that from the get-go. I told them, hey, listen, I'm willing to pay you more, but I need everything done right, like to the T. I need everything done right. T's crossed, I's dotted. No cutting corners, no none of that. This is my brand, and this is what I wanted to build my brand off of, is doing things right. So to make a long story short, everything goes beautifully. I'm using my Amex card. They're sending me bills. As you may know, and your audience may know, military members get Amex Platinum, the annual fee waived. So I had an Amex Platinum.
I didn't realize that.
Oh man, this is another military hack that I love telling military members. It's called the Amex hack, and we can kind of dive into this real quick. I don't know if you want to, but the biggest thing is like you can get the opening bonus, 250,000 for a platinum, and then you can also get the gold. So you start at the gold, you get the opening bonus, you spend like $3,000 in 3 months. Just put your bills on there, spend it on ordinary things that you're already going to. You get your points, and those points stack. Then you'll get an email from Amex, and they'll say, hey, you can add an additional user for an extra 10,000 points. You add your spouse. Do the same thing. Then you can do it with your spouse, rinse and repeat. Now, between the two of you, you have almost 600 to 700,000 in points. That's like a couple round trip flights.
Nice.
So on top of that, if you're an investor, what I did is I had my contractor send me an invoice, and I was paying with my credit card, and then I was using the hard money when the draws came in to pay that off. So it was just a reoccurring point accumulation.
Yeah.
And with the Amex, you get 1.5 points for every dollar you spend. So I put 125,000 on this Amex card, and I was getting 1.5 times the points.
Wow.
So that's a really big hack that I used to kind of start, and everything was going beautiful. The work was so to the T. I did have one hiccup where the basement flooded during a massive downpour. The sump pump broke, and there was not a French drain system in the basement that was properly suited. So I spent like 9K just on getting that. And that was a big learning lesson because we had already finished the basement. So we had to
Oh,
rip everything up, cut the drywalls, do the whole French drain system.
it's always
Um,
after the basement's finished. It's like listed, and it's like the last thing. All of a sudden, it it
every
floods.
time, man,
Yeah.
every time. So now we always check beforehand if there's a French drain system in place, if the sump pump is working and everything like that. But you learn, and you learn with dollar signs. And I tell
Mm.
people that all the time, and that was one big learning lesson. But then we get on market. I had priced it very low compared to what I thought it would sell at. And then it sold even higher. So we priced it at like 405. I think that one ended up selling at 435, no inspections. There was a appraisal contingency. We had like 5 offers when said and done. Inspection goes through, or they did an inspection for informal purposes, got through everything, got through the appraisal. Everything was good. We were 2 weeks away from closing. And all of a sudden, I come over to the property one day and there's a big pink sticker on the door. It's
Oh,
stop work order.
oh my
And I'm
gosh.
like, wait a minute. So I go back and I pull up my contract with the contractor and I'm looking at it and I'm just like, right here, it says I paid $2,500 for permits. Why don't I have permits? What's going on?
Yeah.
So at the time, I had just joined a brokerage with a attorney that it was her brokerage, and she has a law firm. So I'm calling her. That was my first call. And attorneys are very quick to kind of jump the gun on things. So she jumped the gun a little bit. And actually, you had her on, Diana Khan.
Yeah.
Um,
She's great.
yeah, so she's amazing. We used to call her the pit bull. She's our little pit bull. But she gets things done, and she jumped on it, and I thought it was kind of rushed a little bit, but my contractor was kind of like giving me the runaround, like, oh, you said that you didn't want to pull permits. And I'm talking to my contractor, like, this is my first flip. I didn't even know permits were a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, how did I tell you not to pull permits when it's in the contract that I paid you $2,500 for permits?
Yeah.
Like this isn't adding up. It's the math is not mathing here. So to make a long story short, Diana ended up sending a demand letter, and there was some litigation that kind of happened. Excuse me. And that was another learning lesson on my first flip. I ended up doing some permit. I had to go through the permits, all the permits. Was very lucky that they didn't make me tear everything out and replace it. Just had to cut some holes in the wall. It cost me about $900. I was super thankful that I didn't get
Yeah.
crazy wrecked. So yeah, that was a big learning lesson for me on my very first deal.
So did you lose that buyer then, or did they
No,
stick with you?
no, that buyer stuck with me. They were moving
Nice.
from California, and it took me an extra like 2 to 3 weeks, I believe, maybe longer, to close.
Yeah.
After they said, so they stayed here for 2 or 3 weeks on their own dime.
Wow. And how did the city catch wind that you did a rehab that late into the process?
So someone, that's a great question, Kirby. Someone had called. The only way in this specific county that you get a stop work order is if somebody reports you.
Mm.
There's no county inspectors driving around looking for people doing, unpermitted work. So someone reported me, and they were calling like 4 or 5 times to this permit office to get a stop work order.
Wow.
And I don't know who it was. I know it was a lady, but I still don't know who it was. I kind of think it was the seller. I don't know if they were upset about the price I bought it at versus what I was selling it at, and they could see that, or kind of what the situation was. But yeah, that's kind of how that happened.
Yeah. Wow. That is
So
wild. Yeah, I have very similar stories to that. Learning some lessons the hard way. I was about to move into a property I'd fully rehabbed, and similar. Got a stop work order on the door right before I was going to move into move into it. Yeah, it's a tough lesson, but it's similar. Like they made me open up a few walls just to see, but the work was done correctly, luckily. So
right,
so I let it go. But yeah.
yeah,
Um,
that was not a fun time. I was like, you're just thinking about like, man, they could really tell you to open everything up and just take everything out and redo everything. Like it's really at the discretion of the inspector. So I was kind of at the mercy of the inspector, but luckily I kind of played like dumb first investor, which I was. I was a dumb first investor. It was my first time. I knew nothing about permits. I didn't even know you could not pull permits.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. Going back to how you got this deal, I'm curious on this. So, as a realtor and an investor, obviously you were talking to sellers all day long, and so is first off, do you recommend to people to go that route, having experienced it now? Do you think if you want to get into real estate, becoming a broker first, like that makes the most sense? And then, how do you determine when you're talking to sellers which properties you want to keep and purchase yourself, and which ones you'd rather list?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first one I would say, because I get this a lot, especially investors coming to me and saying, "Hey, like I'm thinking about getting licensed. What would you recommend?" And I tell them, "Don't get licensed." To be fair, there's a lot of compliance, there's a lot of legalities, and it's really not worth it unless you're gonna like you plan on doing some more retail kind of stuff. So if your goals are you want to do some retail stuff, but you also want to be an investor, I would say err with some caution because your license, they're going to hold you to a different level and a different standard. And this is why the hybrid agent isn't talked about as much because it can be very confusing on, all right, the seller contacted me. Are they contacting me as an agent or are they contacting me as their, somebody, an investor that wants to buy it cash? And so you have to determine how that seller is going to navigate. And then you kind of take them down whatever road they want to go down, not the road you want to go down. So I actually, I met my business partner back in 2023, 2024, somewhere around in that area. And we started a wholesale company and it was majority just to find flips for ourselves.
Mm.
And so we started calling, banging phones. We were going direct to seller. We would pull 10,000, records a month. And then we would have them called overseas and then it would come to our CRM. I had two agents at the time that were helping me with this. And so they would always ask me this question, like, how do you navigate these waters of, all right, do we want to buy it? Like, are we trying to buy it cash or are we going to list it? And so the first option is, hey, they already answered the phone to saying, yes, they want a cash offer. So we're calling them as PE home buyers and we're trying to buy it cash. Now, if their price is too high or they say, hey, I'd probably want to list it on the market. Okay, great. We can also service that with our in-house real estate team and we can help you get those needs. But we were going through a checklist like cash offer, novation. If we can't do a novation, then we're going to try to list it.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That's very similar to how we kind of handled it too. When I was running my flipping company, we partnered with a young realtor who was just really hungry, and he was like, I'll put up Bandit signs, I'll send out marketing, I'll handle the lead flow and stuff, and anything that qualifies as a flip will give to you. But it's just a constant lead flow for him for listings as well because the majority of properties don't work as a flip.
Right.
So it was a great relationship. I highly recommend that for people who are doing off market marketing. But yeah, that's great that it could be in house too. So
yeah, I think for newer agents, it's a great lead source and a great prospecting route. And I do think every new agent should try cold calling and give it a shot. It's not for everybody. It's not for me, to be honest. I hate it, but I got good at it and I think it taught me how to communicate better and taught me how to be a person, right? Because you're going to get different personalities, you're going to get cussed at, and how are you going to respond to that, right? Yeah. So it taught me a lot about myself, but it also taught me a lot about other people.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a tough way to go, but you learn a lot.
Yeah, you do, for sure.
So for you then, as an investor, what makes a deal for you? I'm always curious. Like, are there certain metrics you're looking for, or what are you buying today?
Yeah. So when we first started, I probably like much of your audience and a lot of investors, we were like, hey, we'll buy anywhere in Maryland if the numbers make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for us now, we just had this meeting and I was like, hey, dude, listen, we like buying everywhere is too hard. You have to know the neighborhood, you have to know the markets. And if we just say, hey, we want to buy in Anne Arundel, we want to buy in Baltimore, we want to buy in these 4 zip codes, these 5 zip codes, then we can know the market like no one else knows the market. And so like for me, Glen Burnie, that's where I live. That's where I did my first flip. That's where I knew my numbers. Like you could give me bedrooms, bath, and square footage, and I could tell you what it would sell for depending on the condition. So I think when you dial in your market and your knowledge base on that, it's a lot easier to come up with your back end numbers, right? And so then for me, like if anything under 200K in Glen Burnie, I'm buying all day. But that's just because I know typically they're, they're under 1,000 square foot. It's going to cost me anywhere between 80 to 120 to rehab. And then I'm going to turn around and sell it for anywhere between 360 to 380, if not more.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I've seen the same thing over and over again. The more specific you get, actually, the higher your deal flow goes in most cases, because you're not spreading yourself so thin. So, and how have you funded these deals?
So sometimes it's other people's money. Like my first flip, that was an interesting one because I didn't have money. I was still in the Air Force, just bought my first house. I didn't have a down payment of 10% or 20% to go put down on a house using hard money, and float the interest payments as well. So, excuse me. What I had to do was I had to take this deal, analyze it, and then show everybody that I knew that had money this deal and say, hey, can I borrow, 60, 70K for X% of the profit? And so what I ended up landing on is I found a realtor down in Virginia that also wanted to get into flipping. And I said, hey, listen, dude, I'm going to handle everything up here. You're down in Virginia. I just need your money. And if you do this deal, I'll give you 40% of the profits. We're looking at a 70K profit, and I'll give you 40% plus your money back. How can you say no to that?
Yeah.
Right. And I look back on that and I'm like, damn, I gave away a lot of profit for the money. I probably could have found somebody that was willing to do it for like 10 or 12%. But you live and you learn. And
Absolutely.
at the time, 60% of 70K is more than 0% of nothing. Right.
Exactly.
So for me, it's like, if you don't have, like, a lot of people get hung up on the money part, and it's like, don't worry about it. The money will come if you find the deal. If the deal makes sense, the money will come.